So I start this out with the idea of basically the question is how do I pick a farm? Right? So that's what we're going to start with. Now, there are many ways of doing it. One of my suggestions is, especially if you're new, you want to pick an area where there's a lot of turnover. Generally, there's more turnover in condos and townhomes than in single-family homes. People would rather sell single-family homes than condos and townhomes because they're worth more. Plus, condos and townhomes can be somewhat of a hassle because they got homeowner associations, accessibility issues, and other things like that. As you move up the food chain, it becomes harder to break in. One of the comments that I oftentimes get from agents is the office I used to work at, the company I used to work at, had an office in Silver Creek, and so people would always come and say, I want to farm. I'd say, where do you want to farm? They'd say, I want to farm Silver Creek. And I would say, do you live in Silver Creek? They'd say, no, I don't. But I want to farm Silver Creek. Why do you want to farm Silver Creek? Well, because I'd rather sell one $2 million home than four $500,000 homes. You see, does that make sense? Because it's the same amount of commission, 1/4 the work, right? That's for me. More commission, less work, sign me up. Right now, the problem with that is that as you move up the food chain, it's harder to break in. The people in Silver Creek, the turnover rate in Silver Creek is not 1/4 the starter home market. It's like 1/20th as much. So there's a lot less turnover. Number two, there's more competition. Other agents have thought of this too. Number three, many of the people that live there already have a real estate agent because they bought and sold, sometimes using the same agent 3 or 4 times, but you can tell them, I'm new, right? You don't want to use Nancy, who you've known for 20 years. She's busy. I'm new. I got no clients, so you'll get 100% of my time, right? And they're a little more difficult to work with because some of them have sold more homes than you have, right? And so they're better at questions. As you move down the food chain, on the other end, you've got the starter home market, first-time home buyer markets. Their turnover rate is much, much higher. They want to sell as soon as they can. They move up. What my experience from the higher end market is they all move out. They leave Santa Clara County. They sell, they move away, right? First-time home buyers sell and buy in Santa Clara County, 2 transactions. And you want buyers have one advantage if they're here because they're here, and that means their family and their friends and their coworkers are here, so there's more of a sphere of influence. So the turnover rate is higher. There may be a second transaction. They oftentimes don't have real estate agents that they're committed to because they are first-time home buyers, and they want to do this as soon as possible, right? Also, there might be less competition because the agents are saying, well, if I'm going to mail stuff out, I might as well mail it out to $2 million neighborhoods rather than $500,000 neighborhoods, right?
What do you differentiate between like the higher end and lower end?
Well, we'll look at that. How do you differentiate between the higher end and lower end? We're going to look at this now. My theory about picking a farm, I have an unusual theory, and it is that you ought to make it a business decision. So farming where you live may or may not be a business decision. Right? If you bought a McDonald's franchise and then told them, I want to put it, there's this vacant lot near where I live, and I want to put my McDonald's there, you understand they're probably going to say, no, you do not get to pick the location of your McDonald's. Did you know that if you buy McDonald's, you don't get to pick the location? Right? You just can't have any location you want because they have a business model and they're going to say, no, that spot is not the right spot. You could have this spot or that spot or that spot, but you just can't have any spot that you want, right? Now, is farming where you live a good idea? It could be, assuming there's a decent amount of turnover and you've analyzed the competition. I'm going to show you how to do all this, right? We're going to do that today. Doesn't that sound like fun? It sounds like fun. It might be a business decision, but it may not. One of the agents that I used to coach, manage, whatever, back in the old days, she farmed her neighborhood, right? Because she knew it, liked it, that area. Turns out that her teenage son, and his buddies were burglarizing houses in the neighborhood and got caught. Huh? And everybody in the neighborhood knew that her son was one of the burglars that was breaking into houses. Guess what that did for her business in that neighborhood, right? And so it's not necessarily a good decision. So what I generally start with, I'm not saying you shouldn't do your neighborhood, but you should think about it. So what we're going to do, I've logged in as Joni, so I'm going to click on New Matrix Search, and we're going to pull this up, and I would look at stats, just to start with. Now I'm not saying this is the only way to pick a farm, but what I'm going to do is go to Customize, and the time frame is, how about the past 12 months exclusive means the past full 12 months. Past 12 months means the past 30-day increments. And I want to do sales number of, and I want to group it by zip code. Does everybody see what I did? Past 12 months, number of sales by zip code. And just to give us some flexibility, I'm going to add 20. And I assume you only want to do this in Santa Clara County, so I'm going to click on that. And residential, now when I click on this, it gives me the choice of single family, condos, and townhomes. If I were to highlight all three, I know the zip code that's going to come up. Why don't we start with, let's assuming you're interested in condos and townhomes. So I've highlighted those two, and I'm going to click on generate. And what it's going to do is show me the top 20 zip codes for the sales of condos and townhomes. Is number one is an area that I used to farm, 95123. And after that is 126035, 136, 135, 94043, and you see it goes down the list. So if you're thinking about now, could you have this is not necessarily the most intellectual way of figuring it out, but my idea was I was going to go where the business already was, right? I would rather find the large herd of bison and start digging pits and things like that, rather than the small herd thinking, well, there won't be as many hunters, right? There may not be as many hunters because there's not as many bison. Now, if you're saying, well, I understand, I don't want to do 95123, so one of the questions I would have is your zip code, if you're thinking of condos and townhomes, is it on this list in the top 20? If you're saying, well, I don't, really want to do, I'm going to go to the single family homes, so we'll get rid of that. We'll do single family homes. And we're going to hit generate, and we're going to see that list. And 95125 is number one on that list. That's Willow Glen. Now, some people say, ooh, I'm going to farm Willow Glen. Willow Glen has a whole lot of real estate agents. All right. By the way, Saratoga, I've had agents say to me, I want to farm Saratoga. Why? I live in Saratoga. And I get a list. I have a list of everybody in Santa Clara County who has a real estate license. There's over 800 in the city of Santa Clara. Just sharing that little tidbit of information, right? So yeah, you live there, you and 799 other real estate agents. So what's number two? 95123. Now you understand this wasn't necessarily a serious intellectual decision, but can you understand why when I started farming 95123? Right? Condos, townhomes, single family homes, it's a fertile market. 95124 is Cambrian, right? Not bad for single family homes. One of the neighborhoods. See, now that's a good thing.
And I have information about that neighborhood,
Yep.
about development that a lot of the residents probably don't have yet. And I think a lot of them are like, see, bye.
Right. So I would 95124, right? That's not a bad neighborhood then. Right? You understand, I would sort of be looking for the top pack of places to farm. Right? 020 is, anybody know? Gilroy. Yeah, 037, Morgan Hill. We're doing good. Anyhow, but it drops off after that.
My zip code's not even up there.
Yeah.
Okay, I know what I'm gonna do then.
All right. So one way, we're starting in the abstract, and then we're going to go down to the relative, right? So as a general idea, certain zip codes seem to have more business than others. Now, I've coached agents who said, well, yeah, I know the neighborhood, I run it, there are hardly any sales. So I'm thinking it's about time for it all to turn around. Right now, or people that live there don't sell very often. Right, and so so maybe that would be a better to go. I'd go where the herd of bison already is. So does everybody? So now that we're in, so let's just say 95124. Now I'm not going to pick your neighborhood necessarily. I'm recording this in millions. Nah, probably not. But what we can do is when we do a search, by the way, we could from here do a map-based search. Do you see that? But it's tied to the statistics. So what I'm going to do is go over here to search residential. So this is part 2. Part 1 of the how to pick a farm is identifying which zip code you want to look at. Part 1. Part 2 is within that zip code finding which area you want to farm. Notice I'm not starting with this is where I live or I know somebody, right? You understand? I'm starting with something else. So I'm going to look at active, contingent, and pendings and sold. I'm going to put in zip code 95124. And what I'm going to do is put in, because the number of solds is really high, 0 minus 365. So that means everything that's happened within 1 year. And there's 607 somethings, active, contingent, pendings, and sold. Now, instead of clicking on results, I'm going to click on map. And when I do that, what it's going to do is show me, and let me go back. Now, 95124 doesn't have as many condos and townhomes. Did I lose you? So, all right. So what I'm going to do is click on single family homes. 95124, I did some sales of condos in 95124, but we're just going to pick single family homes, 519, but we now want to hit map. All right, I'm recording this. Sometimes it's easier to just play it back and stop it. I've been told by people that's easier to do. And so what this is going to do is show us very slowly a map. Boy, it's slow. And I'm surprised it's this far out. I'm going to just keep zooming in, and you can roll the mouse too to do this. Sometimes you have, there we go. So it takes a while. So this is what the map of what's been happening in 95124 for the last 365 days sort of looks like. Now, as you go in and out, you see different perspectives. What's interesting about this is it shows us that in that little area here, there was 320, 288, 244. Should we begin with the one that's 118 or maybe the one that's 320?
320.
I would think so too. I'm just seeing if people are paying attention. So if I'm zooming in, so do you understand what I might be doing now is looking for clumps, right? Do you see over here, there's a nice good clump. Up here, there's a nice good clump. Down here, there's a nice good clump. You understand? I'm looking for a clump. So I'm just for purposes of fun, I'm going to pick this clump here. And that's Lee, Union, Camden, and that looks like, I don't know what that is, but I will in a moment. So you see how I just dragged that rectangular, that's Foxworthy. See how I dragged the rectangular, right? And what that's going to do is show me how many are in that area. Now, if I want to see what they are, right, because I've identified that area, I go up here to the top right and I click on results. Is everybody with me? Top right, click on results, and that shows me what they are. Now, can everybody see why this is interesting? Let me look at this. I just think I know that person. All right.
I was looking at that house whenever we were recently buying ours.
It's sold? Hmm.
It's sold.
Yeah. Interesting. I just recognize the address. All right. So what we might want to do is add another level to this analysis. And what I'm doing is I'll go slow on this. I'm hovering my mouse over my matrix and I'm right clicking and I'm going to click open in a new tab. So my matrix opens up in a new tab. And then I'm going to go down to settings and I'm going to go down to custom exports. And I'm going to do this for Joni because she gave me $10 beforehand and said if you do anything useful. And I'm going to click on add an export. And what I'm going to call the export is who is selling. How about that? Or who is selling what, all right? And you can, now what I really care about here is I want to know the listing agent full name. And I'm also sort of interested in the listing office name. And I don't really care about anything else. I'm going to select label because it makes my export nice and neat, and I'm going to click on save. Now that I've done that, we're going to go back to where we were, and I'm going to click on that. I want to make sure all of them are checked. And I'm going to go to export. Who is selling what? I'm going to click on export. I'm going to open it with Microsoft Excel and click on the corner, format it because I like it nice and neat. Highlight the first row, make it bold so that it knows that we're doing that's field headings. Click on the A, data sort, and what it's going to do is show me who's selling what by the name of the listing agent. Now, one of the things that I like about this area that I selected is you'll notice that I don't see anyone's name twice. No one's name is there twice. What that usually means is nobody is farming the area. Right?
Oh, this just means someone has had a transaction close.
Listings.
Listings. Oh,
Listings.
listings. Okay, got it.
Right.
So they sold something.
A listing sold.
Okay.
That's what it means. Or they could be active and pending because I had selected active and pendings. So the idea is could you go up against, in Santa Clara, Rivermark, there's an agent who's dominating that particular area, right? Now, is it possible for you to go up against her and take business away? It's possible. Would it be easier to go into an area that nobody was successfully farming? How about that? And this looks like an area that nobody is successfully farming. Right? Does that make sense what I just did? Now, I don't know, we'll see who's geeky enough to know what a pivot table is. Anybody? Oh, good. So what you can do is in 95124, you could run all the closed transactions from listing sides. And what you would do is to make the pivot table work is you need to it needs to learn how to count. The pivot table needs to know how to count. So we could call this transactions. This is a bonus. And what you do is you put in the number 1 and then you just drag this, once it lets me do it, you take the number 1 and you just drag it to the bottom. And what that does is it assigns a 1 to each time an agent is mentioned. And then by inserting a pivot table, and for those of you that are not geeky, I apologize, but inserting a pivot table, basically what the pivot table will do is count for you. It'll say this agent has done 8, this one has done 6, this one has done 4, this one has done 2. So if I were starting with 95124, I might run everything in 95124 and then let the pivot table tell me who's the number 1, who's number 2, who's number 3. Then I would map their results and not farm them. Right? Just not bother with them. Go over a little bit and find an area. Now, we happen to pick one. Whether you want to learn how to use a pivot table, not that difficult. The key part I just showed you is you have to put in a number 1 for each transaction so the pivot table can count. All right, how about this? You go to pivot table, select a table or range. What I'm going to do is highlight that pivot table. I'm going to say new worksheet, click on OK, and I'm going to click on this. That's the listing agent name. Transaction is values, and I let it sit for a second. I don't really need the listing office, but the only reason that that's sometimes useful is because you might just want to look. See what it's done is it's added them all up for me. All right, I really don't need the listing office. I'll get rid of that, but it's added it all up, and now in this particular one, it's all 1, right? But if somebody had 2, it would say 2. If somebody had 3, it would say 3, and then we can sort that column and find out who's number 1, who's number 2, who's number 3. My suggestion is there's no reason to, so what are we looking for? We're looking for turnover and preferably an area that's not dominated by one agent already, right? Because it'll just be easier if we're farming against somebody who's not farming. The other thing about this that's sort of useful, when the reason I put in the office name is you'll notice that our office, that there are a couple of Keller Williams in this list, right? Now, the value of that, here's one, Shannon Rose, and I also saw Patricia Hine is there. So the value of that is people are used to seeing our for sale signs in the neighborhood, right? Does that make sense? There's other videos of me doing this. I thought it would be fun to update it. But this is what I would go through to pick a farm, all right?
Quick question on like how big,
How big of a farm should you have?
yeah.
So I have let me do this. The short answer is you want to start with at least 500 up to 1,000. I'm going to search for farming, farm cards, reap the rewards of farming. It's a class that I did. Farming document. Let's see if this is what. And I have some samples. So this is something I had put together at a different point in time, in a different lifetime. So I want that to just go away. All right, so go away. How do I make it go away? Just go away. Oh, well. So the art of house farms. And it took a $600,000. One of the things you might want to look at is what's the turnover rate. If it's a 10% turnover rate, then that means that out of 500 homes at 10%, there's 50 possible listings. Well, how many of them are you likely to get in your first year if you do this aggressively? Let's say 10%, right? That would be 5 listings, which nobody would cry about that. Once you got to 20%, you're getting 2 listings. Now, if you're targeting right, this is what 3B is talking about. If you're targeting it right, the people that are selling also might be buying, right? I would strongly suggest that you have a farm that people that sell might also buy, right? Just because in the second transaction, and if you get a third, but usually they buy up. So if you have 5 listings and you get a third of them that buy up, and I rounded it down to 1, right? You get 1, that's an extra 20 grand, right? Just from helping somebody buy. And at 10 listings, if a third of them move up and you work with them, that's an extra 60 grand, right? Same farming, right? You understand? Same expense. It's just that you get that second transaction. Combined potential of getting people to sell and helping them move up, you understand at 10%, this is using a $600,000 price, 2.5% side is over $100,000, right? You'd be very close to capping just from that alone, and I'm using a low area, right? And so this is just, and for a minor fee, I think I have an updated of that. I actually have here, this looks like a PDF of a farming class that I put together. Doesn't that look sort of familiar, right? So, and I believe this is that PowerPoint presentation that I put together on farming. I was doing farming meetings. So, these are different kinds. There's demographic. We're talking mostly about geographic farming. See, there's a bunch of different slides here. Goals, budget, size, location, turnover. And I'd be happy to give you a copy of this, right? There's that PDF that you saw go by. And what I would really suggest that you do is you do research. And most of this, I think, is somewhat self-explanatory, but it shows basically what you would do. Now, I'll print that out if you guys would like to look at it. Why not? And no extra charge. So what? I'll print this out. The other thing that I would suggest you do is you meet the title reps from either Fidelity National Title or Chicago Title. Terry Larkin is Fidelity National Title for our office, and Lori Ojeda, O-J-E-D-A, is the rep for Chicago Title. And the reason that you might want to talk to them is that they have a program called Attract, T-R-A-C-T analysis, and it comes from a company called Rebo Gateway. And what Rebo Gateway has, they've made a deal with, by the way, Chicago Title and Fidelity National Title have the same parent company, which is why they have the same product. And what Rebo Gateway has is a product called the Tract Analysis Tool. And what it will do is it will help you analyze tracts. And what you can do with the tract analysis tool is you can say, I'm looking for a certain turnover rate, a certain turnover rate. And you could also take a map and map it out and say, what's the turnover rate here? And it'll tell you what it is. It will also filter out areas where agents have multiple listings. You could say, I want 95124, minimum turnover rate of 9%. And by the way, you need a turnover rate that's really 7% or above to really start getting traction. Like, I'm just saying, 10% would be really good. You'll find some that are higher. So in order to be a successful farming agent, you need to meet a friendly title rep. Have you met an unfriendly title person yet? No. They're all very friendly, right? So if you were to call Lori or Terry, and you don't need one of them, right, because they have the same, right, and talk to them, they would be happy to come over and speak with you about how to use their tract analysis tool. Then they also, by the way, will give you what's called a farm book or a farm package. And once you've identified these are the This is my perimeter, right? I've decided, like the one I did was Foxworthy and Lee and all that. This is the perimeter. This is where I want to farm. Once you've done that, they'll give you digital and in printed form, if you don't like trees and like to see them die, but they'll give you in digital or printed form a farm package. And the farm package would be everybody that's in that farm, right? And what they'll do is they'll break it down from owner occupied to non-owner occupied. Now remember in the team meeting, somebody was talking about how they got an investor who was a non-owner occupied, right? In other words, the two groups that are the owner occupieds are people that live there. So that would be what you would do your traditional farming towards. The non-owner occupieds are two groups of people. There's the investors who own it and the renters who live in it. So could you have a message to renters? Could you say, you don't know their names necessarily, but you could say future homeowner, right? Do you think they all know that they can buy a home with 3% down? Probably not. The people that are the investors, do you think people that want to be landlords are happy with the experience all the time? They're happy having tenants and trying to get rent from them. And so either they are or they aren't happy. If they are happy, they might want to buy another one. If they aren't happy, they might want to sell the one they have. Right? Do you understand? So you could reach out to them and contact them that way. And by the way, the title companies will give you labels that you can print with. Where you peel them off and you can stick them on. That's very old school. Okay? Very old school. So does that make sense so far? Now, how much time? I'd be willing, if you guys are interested in this topic, I'd be happy to go through this a little bit more. Right? You understand? Because now you're going to say, all right, well, I've got my material. I know who I want to send it to. What am I going to send them? How do I make postcards and flyers? Now, some people you already know how to make postcards and flyers. Some people don't know how to make postcards and flyers, right? There are people, our office comes equipped with Microsoft Publisher, which if you're good at this, you probably look down on, right? That's considered to be not a great program, but for many people, it's way more than what they're used to, right? Because it doesn't come in the basic part of Microsoft Office. So what could you do if you go into my KW? Is there any see this? And you're to go to I'm now going to just do a quick on let's make marketing materials. And if you guys are interested, and you're saying we want to farm, maybe we could talk a little bit about it at each of the sessions. I'd be happy to do that, right? Because I also have an export. I'll show you what it looks like. I have a way of making the farming pieces. Not only was I a farming agent, the company I came from was sort of well known for farming, and I devised a system that we used for farming, right? But because what we learned that we needed to do was actually make the farming pieces for people, because they probably weren't going to do it. So easy way of doing it is you go up here to My Marketing and you go to Create Marketing Materials. And what you're going to find, once we let it spin around, is, so our options, let me just go through the options for farming. I'm willing to actually go through this, showing you how to do the different ones. Options would be 1, My Marketing in eEdge. Right? eEdge will allow you, see there's a postcard. So what you're going to have to do is step 1, pick a farm. And so what maybe we could do between now and next week is you could figure out where you want to farm, right? This will be up on the internet relatively soon. Figure out where you want to farm. Step 2 is figure out how do you want to farm. Now, what I mean by how, what are the options? Well, one is you could mail postcards, right? How much does that cost? It depends on how you do it. If you use eEdge, My Marketing, they actually will mail the postcards for you. So in eEdge, My Marketing, and I'm not going to go through all this right now because I want to be done around 3. In eEdge, My Marketing, you can take the list that the title company gives you of your farm, upload it to My Marketing, create a postcard, see, postcards, create a postcard, they'll mail it out for you. Print it, address it, and mail it out, and it costs about 80 cents a postcard. Color, two-sided, addressed with postage. Now, I've had people say, well, I'm going to go buy the paper right down at, I'm going to Office Max, I'm going to buy real thick paper, and I'm going to learn. By the way, merging postcards requires a little bit of software and knowing what you're doing. It's not necessarily to mail merge and put and have it imprint, not as easy as one might think. And by the way, the paper is expensive paper, and our printers are 22 cents a sheet. Two-sided is 44, but if you cut it in half, you're down to 22 cents a postcard plus first-class postage, right? So do you understand, by the time you're done, you've maybe shaved a nickel to 7 cents off of the 80 cents that they're charging, and you don't actually have to do anything. You also could use a company called Reps. They're not the only ones that do this. It's one that I've used and Jeff Hansen has used, and it's going to cost about 48 cents, including postage. They do bulk rate, extended carrier route pre-sort, right? So the postage is only about 23 cents. This, by the way, is black on white, right? You could do black on canary, heavy stock, right? So there's a little bit of cover, but just black ink. So now you're down to about 48 cents delivered. They address them, print them, take them to the post office, fill out the forms. I've had people, I've gone through this, people say, well, I can just take them myself to the, You need really expensive software to run that extended carrier route pre-sort and get the right barcode on it. So one option is you could mail them out. You also could get the labels from the title company and stick them onto the cards and take stamps and put them onto and print the postcards on with you could do that too, right? But I'm not necessarily going to cover that. A second option for delivery is every door direct mail, which is from the United States Postal Service. It costs 16.5 cents per postcard plus printing. You have to pay for your own printing. And it delivers based on carrier route, not based upon your geographic, right? It's their carrier route breakdown, not how you want to break it down. Now, an advantage of that is that you can print things almost any size, right? You understand you could have a big piece of paper, right? Remember the elections, all that stuff you were getting? This is how they did it. The third option is you can hand out flyers. Now we're talking about what does it cost to print them. Now, our printer is 7.5 cents. One of the things that you ought to do is there's out there Fidelity National Home Warranty. Fidelity National Home Warranty. You want to get Renita Osborne's card, and you go to homewarranty.com, and what you do, you get her card, which is right out there, and you see where it says real estate professionals. There's a thing called EC purchasing. And I'm a member, but if you're not a member, you're going to click on sign up now, and they're going to say who referred you to EC purchasing, and you're going to put in Renita's information, and what they're going to do is give you a discount card for Staples, Office Depot, and Office Max. By the way, the last time I used it, the black and white copies were about 3 cents each. Ours are 7.5 or something like that. So what you can do when you get this is that you can make a PDF. They also can print from Publisher and a lot of other programs, but you can make a PDF and email it to them. They'll print it, call you up and say it's ready, and you go down with your card and you get a discount. So you could print flyers. They'll cut them for you, right? You could have a whole bunch of flyers printed, one side, white and black, white on canary, something like that. Get them cut, and you could go knock on doors and hand them out yourself. If you're simply talking about distributing flyers, putting them on somebody's doorstep or on the door, or doing a door hanger or something like that, and assuming you're relatively fit and the terrain that you're doing this does not involve mountain goats and things like that, you can do about 100 an hour, right? That doesn't include talking to people, handing out, putting flyers on doors. Okay? So your options are, you can mail them, you could do the every door direct mail and hand out flyers. By the way, one of the disadvantages of the every door direct mail is that tract analysis tool that the Fidelity in Chicago have can identify the people that are in that area that are more likely to be interested in selling their property. So, for example, somebody who closed last week is probably not going to sell their property, right? Because they just closed last week. So what they do is they basically get this bell curve based upon how long they've owned it, as to when they sell. By the way, sometimes it looks like a wave. In other words, right now there aren't a lot of sales, but the ownership demographics, if that's the right term, is approaching it, right? You understand? So you could identify the people that are most likely to be selling for the postcard, right? You understand? You don't have to send it to everybody. Pick out the ones that are most likely to sell. Every door direct mail sends it to by the way, it goes to renters, right? It doesn't know the difference. It just, everybody gets one. So your options, and we can cover this in how do you make the materials. You could do My Marketing and eEdge. Reps will do it with you. By the way, with Reps, you have to pick out one of their templates or do it yourself. I've had people that were graphic designers and things like that have gone, they have Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator, and they want to make their own stuff. That's fine. You can do that and send it to Reps and they'll print it. And the other one is the Michael Lewis Marketing, which we have access to. And by the way, Michael Lewis, so these are just some of the sources. You can just do them yourself, but these are the options for producing copy, right? You could use templates in My Marketing, Reps, and just so you can see, if I go to REPS, Reps Web is their page. Real Estate Promotional Services is their name. They're located in the city of Campbell, and you can look at them. They have property flyers, postcards. They have a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not saying they're the only ones to do, but you see they have postcards, available sizes, black and white. Submit your order online. So there's lots of different options. What I did this morning, using, let's see, where is it? Cindy Lance Farming. I helped Cindy, make, this is a postcard that I have to admit, this is one of mine. So, what have your neighbors been up to is the headline with a peeping Tammy, I guess, on the side. And it has a list of what's been going on in her farm area. This, by the way, was created by making a custom export from the MLS, just like we did that one, Who's Doing the Business. I made one that has all of these different fields in it. And so it exports into an Excel spreadsheet, which you can just pop right in. Contact information, picture, call to action, logo, disclaimer, two up. This is something that she's going to print, cut, and go and walk around and hand out. Right? Could be a postcard too. You could make the back a postcard, but just thought I'd show you an example. Right? And in the Michael Lewis Marketing Suite, how many of you know that and have logged in? Everybody, we've got a couple of you. So if you've done that, if you've gone to Michael Lewis Marketing Suite and logged in, you can see they have some nice looking templates for door hangers, for postcards, and for stuff like that. Right? And you ought to, and I'm willing to help you with this if this is not very complicated. Right? Not very complicated. But for somebody who says, I don't know how to make flyers and postcards and things like that, Michael Lewis will make nice looking stuff. E-Edge is quicker. It'll make quick stuff, right? And some of it is not bad. I was helping Rick Core do this, and one of the things he was using one of those postcards, right? Just like the one I showed you, the Look What Your Neighbors Have Been Up To. And the second postcard he sent out came from E-Edge, and this is over in an area in Cambrian, not 95124, but a different area. And a guy called him up and said, I've been getting your stuff and I want to sell my house. Right? So that's one of my... So do you understand? And door hangers, my experience has been that having a multi-approach works best. By the way, in addition to all of this, and then I got 2 minutes and then I'll stop, is we also have something from Cole Realty Resource, which based upon a given geographic area, like even a little farm box, will pull up all the phone numbers for people that live there, and we pay extra to get cell phone numbers and things like that. So you could knock on the door, you could call them on the phone, you could hand out flyers, you could send a postcard. If you do all of that, you'll do better than just doing one. Now, going from there, you could have a Facebook business page about Cambrian Park, right? Something like that. There's a lot more things you could do. One of the things that I used to do this class on how to farm for free. Or people would show up for this. How to farm without spending any money. Doesn't that sound like a great idea? And what I would do is I would go to around my farm. This is how I got started. I didn't really care too much who it was, a dentist, a loan agent, a pizza company, a tire company. I did not care. And what I did is I went to them and I talked to the manager and I showed them, this is the area. I'm a real estate agent. I do mailings and marketing to people in this area. See this area which is right around where their business was. And I thought maybe we could work together. Right? How would you like to piggyback? Maybe we could split the cost of marketing. Right? By the way, that every door direct mail could be two-sided, and I see a lot of those where you get a mortgage company on one side, or I didn't care if it was a dentist or a tire company, right? If they were willing to spend money, I would include their material with me, right? And by the way, as a bigger abstract to all this, putting together a list of community resources is one of the things that real estate agents typically do when they're farming. Community resources. Where would you go eat? You get the idea, all these people that have businesses in the area that might be interested in co-marketing with you, right? You know, you help them, you send people to the dry cleaner sends people to you, right? Do you understand? Putting together at least a list of community resources, having a website with all this, right? You can keep going and going and going. Starting point is you pick a farm, decide a distribution pattern, and go on from there. Was that enough about that for now?
Helpful.
Okay.